Sup Shredders, my name is Logan, aka Spiderhands, and welcome to an SP Reacts, where today we're going to be checking out some tracks from an act named Star Departures. And if we switch over to here, we're going to be reviewing a total of 5 songs today. The first one off of the I Guess It's Music That Loved Me All Along album that's going to be released in June if I'm not mistaken. This is the self-titled track, and we're going to listen through each of these 5 tracks from start to finish, and we're going to hear what we think. Let's go. Let's do it. What do we got? Let's go. Let's do it. I like the roundness of the tone there, the fullness of it.
He had leather boots and a 6-string dream. Played his heart out in a smoky scene. Midnight ride with a rebel soul. Living and breathing that rock and roll. She wore flowers in her golden hair. Dreamt of houses and Sunday prayers. Told him, baby, can't you see that music's gonna bury me? But he said, I can't turn down the noise. It's the fire in my veins. It's the voice of the boys. You can take my hand, but not my song. I guess it's music that loved me all along.
I like that sign off there at the end of the chorus. Well done.
She bought him suits, tried to tame his style. Told him clean cut would last a while. He tried to fake it, played along, but it killed his soul in every song. He missed the chaos, missed the fight, the screaming crowds, the neon lights. One tear rolled as he walked away, 'cause some hearts are born to break and play, can play. I can't turn down the noise. It's the fire in my veins. It's the voice of the boys. You can take my hand, but not my song. I guess it's music that loved me all along. You can change the story.
Good use of an interlude here.
Can't clip the wings of a heart that flies. He was born to crash, to burn, to soar. And she wanted less, but he wanted more. I can't turn down the noise. It's the fire in my veins. It's the voice of the boys. You can take my hand, but not my song. I guess it's music that loved me all along.
I like the phrasing there, the guitar lead there, it's quite sweet.
He drove off with his guitar case, still chasing that electric grace. She watched him fade into the night, a boy who chose his song in flight.
Okay, so that was the first track, I guess. It's Music That Loved Me All Along. So I think that it is about someone who is realizing that it's that performance, that thrill of being on stage, getting in touch with your instrument, with your creativity, that vibe there that is most important in their life, and it's what got them through things. When you say, I can't turn down the noise, it's like, it could also be inferring that they're having sort of struggles in life, and it's music that helps get them through those particular issues there, that they need that noise in order to be able to function. And when we talk about music that loved me all along, it's almost like we're saying that the love that we get from music is not the same as we'd get from people themselves. It's a very sort of unique, special thing that they really appreciate. So I feel like that music, that story is going to be relevant to people who make music, people who enjoy music. You know, I get that. You know, it's very much an inner locus kind of thing where when you're a musician, a songwriter, you want to kind of create and have sort of like agency over your own journey a lot of the time if you're not working with other people, or even if you are. And it's cool. It's cool that we're writing something like that. So I think one of the things I appreciated is I like the style of vocals. Now I can tell there's a little bit of tuning going on just with some of the ways that the notes are carried between sections, like the legato passages very kind of da-da-dun, like that kind of thing. And that's okay. Like we're clearly trying to get it to meld, to integrate with the other elements within the composition. But I do feel like the melodies and the harmonies on the sides work quite well, and they elevate the track. And it seems like a bit of vocal fry occasionally adds a bit of kind of grit and authenticity to it, at least in terms of the emotionality, the expression of it. But then it's also like I don't necessarily. It's more like a stylistic thing though, as opposed to I am feeling the words that this person is saying thing, though that is subjective at the same time. I also appreciate the inclusion of that solo at the end with the guitar. I feel like having an alternate lead there, having a bit of sort of slide and kind of vibrato-ish, kind of like Cameron pulley off your stuff, maybe some bends and some like flat seconds for a bit of tension at the end was smart. It allowed us to kind of have a bit of a breather from like what is quite a short track, really, 3 minutes 21, with the different sections of different bridge and interlude and chorus and verse parts that we had. A lot of context within it, but we allowed time for there to be something, so a little bit of kind of like extra kind of spice and zazziness, and I like that. I just also appreciate the techniques used as well as the scales and stuff were relevant and mixed well with the style of music we were doing. I think finally the actual instrumental choice here, the choice of drum beats, the choice of guitar chords and harmonies and patterns there, the bass line underneath it, they make sense compositionally and stylistically. It's very much a safe kind of way of writing this kind of music there, but I feel like we're trying to make it inherently catchy at the same time, so it works too. It's just, but there weren't any real harsh edges. There might have been a bit of tension occasionally with some of the final chords before the movement, but still, you know, like we played it safe, but it worked. And I don't really have any complaints about this one. I think that generally is quite well rounded, and I appreciate the outro as an instrumental, and we kind of finished it in a way that was quite sweet and succinct. But we've got track number 2 now. Black Still Feels Like Home to Me. Yeah, they're really beautiful guitar harmonies. I'm going to comment about that later on.
Lights. I've walked the gold streets. I've tasted the sugar. I've drowned in the sweet. But the colors all fade. The promises bleed. And black still feels like home to me. They gave me white flags. They gave me new names. Told me to smile, to dance in the rain. But the storm is
interesting bass movement.
never set me free. Black still feels like home to me. Black still feels like home, where the broken things are carved in stone, where the silence sings and the shadows breathe. Yeah, black still feels like home to me. I wore their ribbons, I played their games, tried on their sunshine, but it wasn't the same. The darker the night, the clearer I see. Black still feels
Great use of call and response there in that lower part.
me. Black still feels like home, where the broken things are carved in stone, where the silence sings and the shadows breathe. Yeah, black still feels like home to me. Not out of sorrow,
Harmonics.
not out of shame, but because in black I know my name. It's the ashes I wear, it's the dirt I need. Black still feels like home to me. Black still feels like home. It's a kingdom built from skin and bone. When
Oh, a major lead.
Yeah, black still feels like home to me.
Okay, so that was quite well-rounded track. Okay, so this second track, Black Still Feels Like Home to Me, I think it's about someone that has had a lot of the finer things in life, but is more than comfortable when things are stripped down and just kind of very minimalist. Like, they don't have to be fancy. They're comfortable not having everything, you know? It's an interesting concept. I feel like this is something that people need to kind of go through it in order to be able to relate to it, but I feel like there'll be an audience for it, and it's an interesting story. I feel, I kind of feel a sense of affinity to it. One of the things I appreciate about this is the use of those guitar harmonies, like the way that the leads create this overall really beautiful chord with each other. It has a kind of a jazziness, like a kind of a glow to it that's really pretty, and a sophistication to that as well. I think it implies maybe a sense of grandiosity, like that we have been to those finer points, you know, that kind of helps to reflect that with what's been described within the lyrics. So I feel like, again, the choice of harmonies with guitar is fantastic, and in general, it's also just the way that some of the instruments are moving. Like, I hear the bass guitar, and in some elements it's very kind of like active, and I appreciate that it goes between parts of the scalar mode and kind of bounces around. It's a bit funky. And it's kind of what I want from music. I want there to be a bit of activity and kind of excitement there beyond simply being able to adhere to the fundamentals of like the chord progressions, key signatures, and root notes and stuff like that. I like it when we kind of mess around a little bit and have some interesting sort of decisions that are made. And I think the final thing I'll sort of mention with this one is that there was use of dynamic range here, and so, at least from a compositional perspective. I appreciate how we were trying to handle things in regards to allowing there to be space. There would be like a call and response, there'd be like a lead guitar and a quieter bit before a transition, and that's just smart stuff. There are also little unconventional bits of air candy, like that parallel major near the end with the vocal harmonies, like in that final chorus, which I appreciated. And there were moments within this piece where we really did try and create an interesting song, both structurally and instrumentally, performatively. If I was to sort of give any constructive feedback, and I'm not sure if this is something that does or doesn't apply to the previous one, there are some instruments in this track that don't sound like a lot of the instruments I've heard recently with them. Like, for example, the hi-hats in this track, they've got kind of an unusual tone to them, and I would have preferred for the hi-hats to have been a bit more kind of solid. They sound a little bit kind of wishy-washy. I'm not sure why that is, but I just feel like if we'd had like a more kind of solid hit on those hi-hats and some bits, it just would have sounded just a little bit cleaner, because you've got some parts in this which sound really, really good. And it's not distracting at this point, but it just is something I'm noting for transparency in this review. And this third track for today, Carl Reese off of the self-titled album Star Departures. Is that piano, I suppose?
Sleeping with a loaded mind, metal in the sky and ghosts in the grind. I came through the fire with a mission in my hand, dodging every shadow in a no man's land. I saw her face in a soldier's dream, told her run fast, not everything's what it seems. The city's gonna burn, but I won't let go. I'm wired to protect her even if she says no. I wanna dress like Kyle Reese, save Sarah Connor from her judgment daydreams. Give me half a minute just to cure her disease.
Interesting vocal crack there.
Give her a baby from the future, it seems. Torn clothes, stolen shoes on my feet, war in my veins and the world on repeat. She thinks I'm crazy, just some punk on the run, but I've seen the fire and the rise of the gun. We hide in the night where the wires don't hum. The end isn't coming, it's already begun. I'll fight till I fall, till I bleed through the screen. For love or for duty, it's all in between. I wanna
Interesting sub drop there.
Reese, save Sarah Connor from her judgment daydreams. Give me half a minute just to cure her disease. Gave her a baby from the future, it seems. One chance in a cold machine war. I crossed time just to stand at her door. No fate but what we choose, that's what I believe. If I die tonight, I die to make her believe. I wanna dress like Kyle Reese, save Sarah Connor from her judgment daydreams. Give me half a minute just to cure her disease. Gave her a baby from the future, let the timeline bend. I loved her before I knew how it ends. Through steel and flame, I'll fight through the freeze. Just a ghost in the wires, but I'm still Kyle Reese. So let the sky fall.
Okay.
Let the timeline bend. I loved her before I knew how it ends. Through steel and flame, I'll fight through the freeze. Just a ghost in the wires, but I'm still Kyle Reese.
Good idea.
But I'm still Kyle Reese. So let the sky fall, let the timeline bend. I loved her before I knew how it ends. Through steel and flame, I'll fight through the freeze. Just a ghost in the wires, but I'm still Kyle Reese. But I'm still Kyle Reese.
Okay, so that was Kyle Reese, track number 3. Now, I think I understood this one a bit more quickly. Mentions of Sarah Connor and Kyle Reese and trying to sort of save this person. You just get the inference that this person that they're discussing is going through just a terrible time, and they're wanting to sort of help that person however way they can. However way they can. They wish they could be that super person for them to be able to accomplish that. And I feel like that's a beautiful sentiment, something to, write a song about. I dig that. In terms of things I appreciated about this track, I thought having the piano here was poignant. I appreciated the arpeggios and triads that we're choosing to play for those chords on the keys. I think opening with that kind of grounds a little bit. It's nice and pretty, but it also does sound sad. But when you stay away from, even if there's just inversions, it's just like allowing ourselves to have a bit of range with the way that we voice those overall harmonies is just great. And it's an instrument I don't think we've had yet. I think in general, the combination of instruments, considering this is supposed to be like a pop song, works well as well. I mean, it's relatively conservative in the way that we sort of structured it. We did have a solo section, we feel like a synthy kind of solo section that iterated upon various elements of like the vocal motif and stuff like that. But it's more that we had seamless transfers between tracks, between parts of the tracks without any rough edges. There were moments where there were pauses and things came down a little bit. We didn't have all the instruments at the same time. We had allowed the layers instrumentally to adjust. We had like different basses and synths and pads and drum parts and stuff like that. There was variety there, and I appreciate that. And the fact that things really came down near the end is we sounded like kind of sad that we even had to solve this person's problem in the first place because we wish they hadn't been in that position there, I think was a smart move. I think a third thing I'd like to mention just about the structure is that I appreciate that this track alongside the other two are 3.5 minutes. I just feel like we've got a formula that we're fairly comfortable with, and almost at this point when I listen to Star Departures, I can kind of predict the way it's going to go. Not verbatim, and I appreciate that. We do have a sense of like each track sounds separate, which is good. And clearly I think that their self-titled is more meant to be a pop effort as opposed to the rock stuff from the previous album. But it's just more that I like that we don't overstay our welcome with these elements there. We tell the story we need to. We allow there to be an additional voicing and then we kind of tap out. And I feel like that's absolutely fine. They're very tight sounding mixes production-wise. Like it seems like things are very glued together. But if that's that's okay. Like that can be said for a lot of music nowadays, especially with the tightness of some of the gluing and stuff in modern pop records. And then finally, we've got Happy For You off the same album.
Babe, I've changed, trust me. Just come to the gym and enjoy it, you'll see. Didn't know if I meant my own words. Just wanted her with me, sounding absurd. No telephone calls, text messages only. Told myself that was the old me. Yeah, she just got up and left with the red dress that I bought her instead. Came to my house, first thing jumped in the pool. I was naked as sin, felt freer than you. That's something to do. Yeah, she just got up and left with the red dress that I bought her instead. Came to my house, jumped in the pool. I was naked as sin, felt freer than you. tells me stay still, don't move. She's not into me, not what she wants to do. I can't fucking move or say a word. I lay down beside her, we talk for a bit. Says she's kind of into it.
Great call and response with the leads and the vocals.
So many times before, usually it's sex on the floor. Can't tell if it's me, but we act like whores. Over in seconds, I roll over and die. Wonder for 10 more years the reason why. Yeah, she just got up and left with a red dress that I bought her instead. Came to my house, jumped in the pool. I was naked as sin, felt freer than you. Freer than you, and that's something to do. She left my villa in the Indo-Pacific. I tried to ask her what she wanted, please be specific. I thought it was shame, she wouldn't say. Moved on with someone else within days. Seeing better nods on the day due to wet. Felt like it should be me instead. Saw the camping trip, the hiking sneakers. I gave it all up for some speakers. Fucking seminar speakers. Hashtag happy for you. Hashtag happy for you. And I'm happy for you.
So this was Happy For You, off the fourth track for today. This one's a bit kind of more mysterious because it's like we're talking about our experiences with this person, you know, a very, very intimate relationship there, lots of interesting things going on there. But then also we talk about how we feel free when we're naked as sin in the poll, Happy For You hashtag. So it's almost like I think we're discussing how close we got to this person, why we feel this way about them. But then it's almost like we gave them up for some speakers and they're with another person now. And we're looking at their stuff and we're saying hashtag happy for you. I'm not really sure how to take this one. I need more time with it. But I think that, I suppose if you have gone through a relationship and you're missing that person that you're with, or simply you're better off without them, or maybe you're just genuinely happy for them, then I suppose that's kind of where it's relevant, I suppose. I'm not sure. But I suppose to talk about stuff that I appreciate about this track, one of the things is simply that we had the kicks. I like the punchiness of the kicks and low end and the way that the bass was handled. I think that was nice and polished, especially when those choruses came in. I think that it was nice and tight and well chained there, and it had a great sense of bounciness in the mix and just provided a great foundation. I like how the bass wasn't there the entire time either. We had contrast throughout this track composition in regards to the instrumental layers, and there were parts where it floated and parts where it didn't. So I thought that was nice. In addition to that, it's very authentic for pop. It's very current with the way we're doing it. I wouldn't necessarily, this is kind of like a double-edged sword, because on one hand, I hear this and I can relate it to a lot of the modern pop music that's coming over the last 5 to 10 years. But then also my concern is that if I listened to this, I wouldn't be able to tell if it was star departures. So it's tricky because I want something within this to let me know that it is unique. Like I want to be able to hear it and go, oh, that's who they are. I just don't know if I get this from that track. But I nonetheless feel like if we are trying to make music that is to tier with the genre in regards to the way it's written and composed, and this is, don't get me wrong, the third thing I want to talk about is the fact that I appreciate the actual intricacy of the composition itself. I like the variety of little guitar lines there, the leads and the finger-picked parts and stuff, and the fact that we have vocal parts and then they call and respond with the guitar leads in the middle, matching neatly with a lot of the synth bass and drums ideas when they're there and outside of it. And I like the fact that each part of the track has its own identity. I mean, like, to be fair, I think the guitars are for most of the time, and you simply have a bit more stuff in the mid to highs later on. The drums continue for a lot of it. It's, I suppose for me, like, I appreciate the fact we put a lot of effort into keeping the track compelling by having different sections, adding different combinations, different instruments on top there, having a sense of foundation, rhythm, and groove with the bass parts handled. And I think ultimately there is enough stuff instrumentally within this track to be able to go, okay, yeah, no, this is interesting. But I also feel like we could have potentially had an alt lead like with some of the other tracks, just something else to kind of show, hey, we have another element kind of put on top to kind of keep things compelling. I think also it's just finding a sense of uniqueness within the piece. And I know that's kind of a brutal thing to say, especially when this is just about to be released, but just those are my honest thoughts. And I think that if we can get to a point where we can hear and know, hey, this is star departures, I think that'll be phenomenal. But finally, we had the 5th track for today, Everyone Will Pay for Sex Someday. Is pushed in that limiter, eh?
Neon lights flicker on rain-soaked streets. Whispers echo where lost souls meet. Promises traded in the dead of night. Hearts entangled in forbidden delight. Behind closed doors, secrets reside in shadows where truth often hide. We dance on edges, play the game, chasing thrills, ignoring shame.
Sorry to interrupt. I do feel that this one was pushed a bit too much in the limiter. I feel like we could have potentially have reduced the amount of gain on that mastering bus, and it would have just been a little bit, because you can hear a bit of digital distortion there.
But in the end, let's find their way. You know they love to say, everyone will pay for sex someday. Silken words and velvet lies, desires masked in alibis. Moments fleeting, yet they stay, etched in memories that won't decay. Behind the glam, the truth is dark. Every flame leaves its mark. We dance on edges, play the game, chasing thrills, ignoring shame. But in the end, let's find their way. You know they love to say, everyone will pay for sex someday. In the mirror, reflections fade, echoes of choices we've made. The price of passion, the cost of desire, burns within an unquenchable fire. We dance on edges, play the game, chase the thrills, bore the shame. Now the debts have found their way. You know they love to say, everyone will pay for sex someday.
And that was Everyone Will Pay for Sex Someday. So this is kind of a little bit like the previous one, Happy Few, where like I kind of get it, but I don't. And that, to be fair, before we go any further, the measurement for a success of a track isn't whether or not I can understand it. It's just more that as an average kind of listener, it doesn't make sense to me on a first listen basis. So for me, does it make sense? I think it's basically saying that because of the way we behave, because of the way we think, because of how things are, we have to deal with the consequences either literally, financially, or otherwise for the fact that we either have had sex or that we will. So I think we're talking about shadows and secrets and stuff like that. So I'm assuming that maybe we're also discussing people who are adulterous, who engage in illicit affairs. And yeah, I kind of get that. I think there'll be people who can kind of relate to that and listen to think, yeah, no, I think people will pay for sex someday. It's just when I look at that, I just can't tell from the title alone whether it's literally paying as in, you'll have to always pay for it. Like if it's like, or otherwise. But anyways, moving on from that, I think the backing theme with the sequences, with the drums, the bass, etc., the pads there, the way it sounds is really pretty. And it's very kind of like, you can sit there and listen to that progression and idea and concept and enjoy your time with it. I didn't necessarily need to listen to the lyrics to kind of sit here appreciating that. And I like the fact that we came down and had differences and adjustments of the intensities of these different parts there as well. There was dynamic range to the piece, which was good. And like some parts, like at the beginning, they had no drums. It was very kind of like low key and very sort of almost therapeutic. It was relaxing, So ultimately, I just feel like the theme is well handled. It's very kind of gentle and majorish, which is an interesting decision when you couple it with the lyrics. But maybe we're just trying to soften the reality of it, if that makes sense. I think as another comment, I appreciated the little plucked kind of the development instrumentally at the end of the track and that outro chorus there. It was nice just to have a bit more movement there, especially this track is a little bit longer than the rest of them. So it's great we understood that real estate needed just a little bit more kind of to color it and decorate it. So I feel like at this point, my main comments that things I appreciate of this track are related to the structure of it, the overall motif, and the development instrumental of certain components within the piece. With that said, though, I don't necessarily feel like the theme matches the lyrics particularly well. It almost feels like we're trying to keep with a majorish overall feel with the fluffiness, almost like I don't know, is it like a good thing that people are going to have to pay for sex someday? Isn't they going to have to deal with the consequences of their actions? Is that the kind of future we want to work towards? Because like, yeah, of course you want people to have to deal with consequences of their actions, but at the same time, I just don't understand why we've got a majorish key for the overall feel of this track. We've got that story. This is not the track I like the most out of the five. I think that the limiting could have been less pushed. Like we could have been a bit less aggressive with the gain on the master bus there. And there was also some kind of unusual fragmentation of the vocals in like some of the parts where we get a bit kind of up and higher in our range that is I haven't really heard much of. And so in lines with the hi-hat tones that I spoke about with another track, it's simply being cognizant of the fact that especially when we've got these kind of intense messages, it's often good to have more kind of grounded sounding tones to our instruments to just kind of keep them just sounding a bit more authentic. Because otherwise, I think like fundamentally musically in regards to the actual like chord progressions and key signatures and stuff like that is completely innocuous. It works. It's just there's nothing here that I particularly think is like really, again, a similar comments that I had with the previous track where it's just I don't necessarily feel like there's anything here that really helps me understand who star departures are. It almost seems like a lot of it is more trying to create an atmosphere, an environment rather than trying to tell us who they are. Because welcome to the conclusion of my review of these tracks from An Named Star Departures. Now, we've listened through 5 tracks today. I guess it's music that loved me all along. Black Still Feels Like Home to Me. Kyle Reese, Happy For You, hashtag Happy For You, and Everyone Will Pay For Sex Someday. Now, I'm not going to lie, I don't think I've been entirely positive throughout the majority of this, but I feel like there's a lot of stuff that I appreciate about this. A lot of it is about kind of dealing with the situation we're in, like being able to sort of deal with things being less fancy, the fact that music is what gets us through and that's our main love for it, kind of moving on for relationships, Happy For You, Kyle Reese discussing, wanting to be able to save someone when they're going through hard times, and then like the fact that people will pay for their mistakes and the things that they've done. Before we get into the overall thoughts, I need people to understand that if I cannot be transparent as a reviewer, there's really no point in me doing it, because otherwise I'm just kind of glazing people in videos, and that's just not the point of being a music reviewer. I have to give balanced feedback. I feel like a lot of this is music where like a lot of the fundamentals are covered. I appreciate the vocal melodies and harmonies, and I think that typically the way we expressed ourselves and put ourselves forward was really solid. With that said, there were times where there was kind of weird vocal fragmentation on the takes. And it kind of sounded kind of a bit weird, especially with some of the vocal harmonies that came in a bit later on. I didn't necessarily like the tone of those. It was a bit distracting from the rest of the piece. But for the most part, it seemed relatively like, it sounded absolutely fine. I think that instrumentally, a lot of the guitar and drum bass parts, such as in the rock parts in the rock album, I guess it's music that loved me all along, as well as some of the poppier elements in the latest tracks, Happy For You and Carl Reese and stuff, they made sense and they worked well within the genre and they're authentic stylistically for that. I feel as if, we understand fundamentally how to create what is expected for the genre. But my comments because I've spoken about each track individually and their own sort of mini conclusions, my overall comment is still that I didn't necessarily get a feel of who star departures were from their music. I think that what I would need to hear is something that makes them unique. And there was nothing within any of these 5 tracks that really told me, like if I heard these tracks, I wouldn't know who they were. And so I think my general feedback in regards to the way that we write our music and compose it is that while we are showing that we're comfortable at creating music that works within a genre, that sounds like a lot of the kind of like modern rock and pop music out there at this point in time. There just needs to be something extra to really differentiate so that we have a chance within the music industry. And again, that's kind of brutal to talk about and it sounds harsh, but it isn't really, because that's literally the reality. We need, and there are so many musicians and we need something different to stand out. And I look forward to finding out what that is when they find it. The thing I appreciate about this is that even though I've mentioned just before that instrumentally with the concepts they had within it, that they were relatively consistent almost to a fact where it was very, very similar to a lot of the styles of music that they were kind of going for and wanted to create. I do appreciate that we made each track structurally very, very interesting. We did have verses and choruses and bridges and several solo sections, and there were moments where we kind of came down and allowed things to be a little bit more kind of relaxed and chilled out, and other points where we kind of built things up with the synth patterns and basses and kicks and stuff like that. I appreciate that we didn't just have guitar solos, there were synth solos as well. I like that. I think it's really creative. That's clever stuff, and it made sense fundamentally. And I should note that there were no issues with the actual way songs are written. There weren't any weird sounds or tones or textures or chord choices or anything like that. Typically it was fantastic. It's just that in the post-production I did find that, well, for everyone will pay for sex someday, it was just a little bit too kind of pushed and limited. We could have reduced the gain, the LFS on that, but it's also the kind of weird kind of bits of fragmentation, artifacting on some of the hi-hat parts and some of the vocal parts there. It just kind of sounded kind of a bit wishy-washy, or there's some kind of glitching sounds, and I just feel like we could maybe look at those for future releases and just kind of make doubly sure that there aren't any of those, so that it's not distracting whilst we're listening to the tracks, because there were some really cool ideas here, and that's separate from my sort of discussion of the relative uniqueness of it. And I think, to be fair, a lot of the time, a lot of music, people listen to pop music or they listen to rock music and they simply want to appreciate the song rather than have someone kind of sticking their neck out and going, I am this person. You know what I mean? It's about the groove and the feel and the message as much as it is about the person. So I think we're almost there, and I wish them the best of luck in continuing to develop and find their identity. This is my review of these tracks from an act titled Star Departures, from I Guess It's Music That Loved Me All Along, titled all the way through to Everyone Will Pay for Sex Someday, and hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please go show them some love via their various social medias and the SoundCloud page, and stay cool and stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they need the help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I'll catch you in the next SP Reacts. Spiderhands out.